Welcome. When I started this fantastic hobby of railway modelling, I found it a daunting task of knowing where to start as a beginner. For this reason, I have put together a series of videos aimed at the complete beginner. We will start from the beginning, the thought process, putting it down on paper, building the baseboard, laying the tracks, electrics, and finally building up the scenery. To help you along your way, each video will have useful tips and explanations to some of the most asked questions. So why not subscribe and follow me while I build my N-gauge model railway from scratch. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Kelvin N-gauge model railway for beginners. Several months ago, I think about 6 months ago, I decided to go into this wonderful world of model railways, and I started reading, going through various YouTube channels, online publications, websites, and looked at eBay and Amazon and started buying a few bits and pieces. Then very quickly I found out that, oh hang on, I bought a few of the wrong things, or I bought a locomotive and it did not work, and you know, what do I do apart from just send it back? And I found myself buying bits and pieces that I thought could be useful, but as I got further into it, I realized that I was wasting my money. So I decided to put this series of videos together for the beginner, and I'm going to wind back the clock and go back to the beginning, how I started. With a bit of luck, I will learn along the way, and you can learn with me if you're an absolute beginner. If you're not a beginner and you've been doing this for many years, then please leave comments at the end of the video and, you know, guide me and probably show me where I'm going wrong. So that's what this video is all about. It is beginners, how I started. I'll be going through the boards and giving advice on what I found. Okay, the first thing that I needed to consider was the gauge. For me, it was very simple. I had limited room. I have not got a big room where I can have a massive layout. I wanted a railway model that was transportable wherever I go. So I decided that my model railway, the baseboard will be no larger than 4 foot by 2 foot. So that was a very simple decision for me. 4 foot by 2 foot. The next decision was what type of gauge, rail gauge, am I going to use? Well, once again, that was very simple, because I decided to use the smallest gauge that can be obtained in the UK and it's readily available, and that is the N gauge. So that was a very simple decision for me, because I know in my head that I wanted a model railway that gave me hours of fun. I did not just want a track that went from there to there, then from there to there. I wanted something that went round. I got scenery and everything. So yeah, so I thought the N gauge, because you can fit, because it's a smaller gauge, you can fit more on your board, more scenery. So that was a simple process for me. One is the size of the board. Yep, I've not got big room, so 4x2. The 4x2 board will go easily through the doors, and so on and so forth. And then the gauge of the track, the smallest, because that will fit on my small board, and give me the possibility of creating really good scenery. Anyway, so that was simple for me. Now, obviously, you may be thinking a little bit differently. You may have a larger space, and your layout may be larger. So just to help you very quickly when deciding your gauge, I've put something together that may help you. Right. So I've been in the shed, and I've created, or I've put together these wooden blocks. And these blocks represent the scale or the track that we're going to use. So, gauge. There are three types of gauges. As I said, I'm using the smallest, which is the N gauge. N for November. And this is the N gauge. This is the N gauge track. Yep. Then the next size up is the double O. Yep. So N gauge, double O. And the third one that's readily available in the UK is the O gauge. So they're the gauges of tracks. What goes along with the gauge is the scale. I'm going to start off with the double O gauge. Yeah. Now the scale for the O gauge, and this is the O gauge, the scale for the O gauge is 1 in 43.5. So this there represents a locomotive, a standard locomotive that will fit on this track. This is in scale of 1 to 43.5. 43 of these alongside will make the full size model. And the full size model is 52 feet long. Yeah. This is 52 feet long in real size. But in modelling size, in scale size, this is 14 and a half inches. Yep. And that will fit, and you use that when you're doing your sceneries with the O gauge. So very big. The next size down is the double O, and we said that this track here is the double O, and this representation of a locomotive, once again, in full size it will be 52 feet long, but in scale size this is 8 and a quarter inches long. So, and generally speaking, when you're talking about a double O gauge, you are talking about this scale which is 1 in 76. So if you put 76 of these along the length, it will make the full size of 52 feet. So bring our big boy back. O gauge, 1 in 43 and a half. Double O gauge, 1 in 76. You can see if I get in front of the camera, yep, you can see the difference in scale. Last is the end gauge. This is the layout that I have chosen, and the end gauge is this small track here. And a representation of the locomotive is this block here. The scale of this is 1 in 148. So what goes with the end gauge is a scale of 1 in 148. So like before, I'm going to need 148 of these to make the full size, and the full size of this is 52 feet. So all these blocks in full size represent 52 feet. The end gauge, and that is the size and scale of, hopefully, my model railway. So I hope that helped in deciding which gauge. I remember the gauge is the width across the tracks, and the scale, the size of the of your scenery, your locomotive, your wagons. Yeah, so they're all in relative to the gauge. Oh, one other thing, if I take this off, for instance, let me just show you something here. One of the things I built, just to try it out earlier on, I built a model church. This is out of cardboard. I just bought it to have a look at what scale looks like, because I do not belong to a model railway club, and I am new and it's been locked down, so I've not been able to go and look around any model railway shops, hobby shops. So I decided just to see, oh, hang on, let's see what a cardboard scale model looks like. So this is an end gauge church, and if I put the end gauge up to the O gauge, you can see that, look, if I was to have an end gauge layout, or I was to have an O gauge layout, and I was to use end gauge scenery, look, the disparity is massive. Yeah? So this train is miles bigger than the model church. So generally speaking, all your scenery, whatever you choose, whether it's end gauge, double O gauge or O gauge, you're going to be building your scenery, you're going to be buying your locomotives, your wagons in scale. So I hope this helps some of you out there in deciding your gauge and your scale. Let's put all this back. Okay. Once I decided on, yes, I know I'm going to build an N gauge railway model, and I'm going to be using scale of 1 and 148. I then had to decide or go on and start buying the relevant bits and pieces for my layout. But what do I order? So clearly, for me, the next stage was to have in my head a plan. What does my layout look like? Now, you can go on online and look at many sites. The YouTube sites, there are thousands. And one of the advices I got from one of the eBay set is to purchase a Pico set track N gauge plan book. Very informative book. It explains the N gauge layouts, and several pages as you walk through, as you go through, you get simple layouts that you can build as an idea, as a start. And it talks about some of the equipments you're going to need. So on this one it talks about the points, more about the points, and later on as we go through the video, and your basic requirements, what you need. So one of my first purchases that I would recommend is get something similar to this, and so you can have an idea, get an idea of the layout which you would like. I went a little bit further and I found a piece of software. It's called SCARM. Now there are loads of softwares out there that will help you, but I decided to use SCARM. And with SCARM I can design layouts, and you can design them in layers. Now I worked with this and I decided on my 4x2 board, this is the layout I would like. I've got the red and blue track, that's continuous, and then I've got the yellow track which allows me to move tracks, move locomotives from one track to another. It acts as a fiddle yard, so on and so forth. And this layout technically allows me to have at least 7 locomotives on it, which is what I want, because as I said right at the beginning, I wanted a railway model that will give me hours of fun. So that's moving locomotives about from one line to another. They can start there, move down, join this line, move up, stop, move down, join this line. So SCARM is what I used for that. It allows you to do 2D, and you can print out a 3D models. Yeah, so you can see it in 3D. Also, importantly, with the package, you can produce a shopping list. So with a click of a button, the software will produce this shopping list, will tell me all the tracks, the equipment that I need to fulfill my design. So as a next point, yes, that's what I will do. I'll get an idea, whether you use a software, computer generated software, or whether you draw it by hand. I'm no good at drawing by hand, so I decided to use a software. I believe the next thing is in your mind is to have an idea of what you want and start putting your shopping list together and start buying, because this can be an expensive process, and it's, for example, it's no good buying a locomotive, for example, if you've got nothing to test it on. So your locomotive comes to you, you know, you can't test it. Is it working? Is it not working? I made this mistake at the beginning. I did buy a locomotive without having a track, and then when I actually bought the track, which was something like 5 weeks later, I fitted everything up and the locomotive was not working, and it gave me a little bit of grief, because I had to explain and beg to take the return, and it was 5 weeks later. So I learned by my mistake. I should have had something set up so that if I buy a locomotive, you got something to test it on. And we'll come to that a little later in this video. Okay. So now that I've got my my picking list on items I'm going to need, I start going out and buy, and then obviously track. I talk about buying track because you need track. If you buy a locomotive, you need a track to test it on. When I went on some of the eBay sites, Pico came up quite a bit, and so I went on the Pico site. And the Pico site introduced 2 kits. These kits just contains the track, no locomotives, but just the tracks that you need to make a simple oval layout. These two sets come in a first radius and a second radius. Now, basically, the radius is the radius of a circle. So I know that I'm doing I'm making up a small board 4x2. The radius, if I show you if I go back to this book, because that's where I say this book comes in very useful. On one of the pages there, it talks about the radius. Just there. Yep, it talks about the radius. And it tells me that if I wanted a first radius, yeah, the geometry is of 18 inches. So from one end of the track to the next end of the track is 18 inches. For a radius 2, it is 21 inches. They're whole numbers, they're not rounded, so it's 21 point something, but let's just say 21. It is 21 inches. My board is 24 inches. So with 21 inches, looking at the ranges, radius 2 would fit in. Radius 3 is 23 inches. So that's very tight to my 2-foot wide board. So I know that I really am going to be working with first and second radius. So I was very interested then in these sets from Pico. Each set comes with certain tracks inside, and here is the packing content of what's inside. My next thing was, is it cheaper to buy a set like this, or should I go and buy individual tracks? Because I have got a shopping list, a picking list from the software. Well, I decided before I do anything, I'll make a price comparison. The two sites I went on was Amazon and eBay to make this comparison. And if I just get my comparison sheet for you, here we are. Here's a comparison sheet. Now, first radius, the starter set, it's a Pico ST300. It contains all these items. To buy this from Pico, it was then £64, and as a whole pack. So the price comparison. If I was to buy the contents of this box on Amazon, it would have cost me £105. Well, actually, it's £104.97. Let's say 105. Yep, £105. So, £64 if I bought the set, £105 if I bought them individually. No brainer, really. Yep. So that's that. If I bought everything now on eBay, this £64 set would have cost me £96 on eBay. So £96, still cheaper, it's still more expensive than buying a set, and certainly between eBay and Amazon, eBay came out the cheapest by probably £8-9. Yeah, so eBay was cheaper by £9. So that is the first radius. Let's have a look at the second radius. The second radius, the box comes exactly the same. On the back, it gives you the contents of what's in the box. I used the contents. I went to Amazon, and the parts for this set individually would have cost me £92 from Amazon. From eBay, it is £91. Just £1 difference between Amazon and eBay. However, they were still excuse me, they were still more expensive than the set. Oh, excuse me. Anyway, I needed these two sets, so I bought the sets, and they came up to 120. Were they 64? 128 pounds for the two. If I was to buy it from eBay, which is clearly the cheaper, it would have cost me 187, which is £59 more expensive than buying a set. So, hope that helps. I certainly, if you're going for the N-Gauge like I did, certainly look at buying the sets. £64 I got them for, but if you go and shop on eBay and you're willing to wait, you may be able to bid for one of these and get it cheaper than the 64. But if you was to buy it from Pico, it will be 64 anyway, and it's a great saving. So that's decided my track. So I've gone along and I bought the set, and in my next video, when I make the baseboard, I will be putting these on the baseboard, and we'll be talking more about their layouts then. Okay, so I got my layout. Also, what I decided to do, because as I said in the early part of this, I put my locomotive. I had nothing to put it on. I did not know how to test it and everything. So I decided to buy a few bits of spare track, and I put together. Let me just get it for you. I put together this board. This board is my testing board. So later on in the next video, we'll talk about how I made it, because this is a miniature version of my actual baseboard that I'm going to build. Yep. I put some tracks on it. There is some cable there so that I can fit a power supply, because that is the next stage. I'm buying my track. How am I going to power it? Well, powering it, there's two power supplies. One is DC and the other is DCC. Now, DC is direct current, and DCC is digital command control. There's a big difference between the two. So I'll try to explain. Now, on a DC model, if I get one of my locos here, there's one of my locos. I'll just move the camera down a little bit so we can see what we're doing. On a DC model, the controller for a DC will control one locomotive on one track. So if I just wanted one track going round, I can have one track and one locomotive, and the DC model will work fine. If I've got two tracks and they were powered by the same DC controller, and a DC controller would look very similar to this. This is an Arnold N. It's a DC controller. Now this controller, as I said, will control one train, one track. If I was to connect this to two tracks, then the 12 volts running through both of these are controlled at the same time. So as I turn this dial up, it gives more voltage to a maximum of 12. As I turn it down, it will reduce the voltage, and the train will pick up and move. I will not be able to have two trains on the same track working independently. If there was another wagon or another locomotive on this track, when I move the controller, both would move at the same time. I'll just use my little model there. Yeah, both would move at the same time. Yep. And if I had two tracks powered by the same controller, and this model was there and this one is there, that would move at the same time. Yep. So there's no control, independent control of the locomotives, and that is DC. Now straight away, that's not what I wanted, because I want to control each track. Now, if you looked at my original design, I've got 3 probably main tracks. Yeah. So each track needed to be separate, and also I wanted 7 locomotives, and I wanted 7 locomotives to move independently of each other. Now, for me to do that, I then look at the more complex power unit, which is DCC, which is Digital Command Control. And here is, I went for my first one, the Hornby. This is the Hornby Select. It's probably in the beginner range. Now that I know a little bit more on this, it is limited to certain things. But as a beginner, for me, this will do until I get up to the next level. So this DCC controller, the Select, allows me to have, I think it's up to 25 locomotives, to control 25 locomotives independently, and also I control the locomotives on various tracks. So if I had 2 locomotives on this track, I can control this locomotive independently, so this one can wait here while this one goes round and into a siding, let's say, and then I can control this one to come forward, or make the 2 move together, yeah, and this one can go a little bit faster than that one. Yep. So I can control all these independently. So for so my next buy was obviously to buy the DCC. So that is DC, and DC basically is 1 locomotive, 1 track. DCC, multiple locomotives, yep, controlled independently. So that's the power. So once again, I hope that helps some of you out there. Obviously, this is model railway for beginners, so very simple explanations. The experts of you out there, if I've said something wrong, please make a comment at the end, and then I'll put that comment right in the next video. Thank you. Right, let's move. So. Okay, so I've now bought my power supply, and I know I'm working with the DCC. What other things would I suggest that you go out and start buying now, so that you can test? Well, we know you know your baseboard size, so you need to buy your wood. You're going to need to buy the wood for that. Now this is MDF. I did not go out and buy, because I had a previous project. I made a doll's house for the grandchildren, and I had some wood left over. So the MDF I am using, and the battens, which is going to secure the boards, these here, are leftovers as well in the garage. But you're going to, if you've not got any leftovers, you're going to need to look at what you're going to use. I'm using MDF. You can use chipboard, or you can use some. There are various options, and in the next one I'll probably put a list of all the types of boards that you can use. But I'm using MDF. So buy your wood. If you're buying your wood and you've got to make your tool, you've got to make this up. You're going to obviously need your saws, your drills, your hammers, your screws, your nails, all that type of thing. Then in terms of your model railway, you've got your kit list, so you're going to buy You're going to buy your track, you're going to buy your points. As I've said, I've now decided on a controller, so I went out and bought a controller. Now, when I come to wire all this up, I'm obviously going to need some kind of cabling. Now, through my reading, I found out that DCC uses a bus cabling. So basically, it's a length of wire going from the controller to the end of the board. The wire at the end of the board is not connected to anything in particular, because the way that the DCC works, it sends down square signals, and your train and anything that's on it will pick up the code, and the code goes to a decoder in the train and run. So you need cabling that goes from your controller to the length of the board, and this is just connected at the end of the board, not connected to anything. It's not run in series. So you need your cabling. Now, for this set, I know that I will not need anything greater than 5 amps, and 5 amps, you can use quite a large board for this layout for 5 amps. So my local garage had these on the accessory stands. Yeah, these cost me £5. They're £5 each, and they're 5 amps. They're 7 meters on each roll, and I've got a red and I've got a black. So you're going to need that. Then if I've got cabling, I'm going to need something to connect all the cables through. I know I'm going to need a little bit of soldering, because the way the layouts work and the way the DC works, later on, I say in the later videos, I'm going to talk about points, and points on a track can give your certain parts of your track dead areas where no voltage is going through. Now there's a way for this, and it's connecting wires from your track or your points through your baseboard, and then connecting it to your to your wire. Okay, that's running the length. So 2 ways of doing this. You can solder, and you will be soldering, because some of the things, especially if I'm joining, especially if I want to join a wire from this, I can join a wire to the actual track. So I can join the wire in this space there, or this fish plate, this connector, I can solder from there and go through. Okay, you can buy these, by the way, already soldered, but you know, you're paying a premium. So for the sake of having a solder iron, if you have, and learning a new skill, I will go through and solder. So what you're going to need is solder iron. Yeah? And it's a simple solder iron here. It's a small one that will do my need. It's a variable temperature. It goes up to 450 centigrade, which is 450 Fahrenheit, which is fairly hot. It's a variable. I've got a variable control. They're all different types on the market. It's a must. And if you've never soldered before, like my soldering skills are not good, I went out, bought one of these, and I'm now practicing where I can, soldering bits of wire together. Because when I make up my board, when I start soldering, I want it to be right. You know, I don't want any failures, and if I have a failure and I mess up a piece of point, that could be £4 wasted. So I want to make sure that my soldering skills are good. So I bought this out, and I'm now practicing with the soldering. Obviously, iron. You're going to need solder wire. I suggest that when you go out, you buy the solder wire that has got flux as part of its core. Flux allows solder to easily attach to the tip of your solder iron or the item that you are going to solder. So the flux in it's a bit of a cleansing agent as well. So you need your solder, you need your flux. Right. There are areas also where you're going to connect, and it may be difficult to use a solder iron. So I found these connectors. If I just get one out, I've got a bag here, inexpensive bag, can't remember how much, but the connector clips I'm talking about are these. Very, very simple to use to join a piece of wire. Basically, if you just imagine your bus wire going through, and from the board it comes down, I want to connect to this, I take my bus wire, I put it there, and the wire that I want to join, I put it in the side, press down on that and clip. Believe me, making a joint, making a connection, here's one I done earlier, making a connection like this is very, very simple. Here's a thicker wire and here's an attachment, and it is solid. So as a recommendation, as a good buy, I would say look for these. Not very expensive, inexpensive. I bought a bag of various size and colors. So you want to start looking for that. Okay. What else would I suggest that you're going to need? Okay, these helping hands. Yeah, you must have one or two of these. These allows you, especially if you're soldering or you're doing some intricate parts, and you know when you're soldering, you've got your solder iron in that one, you got your solder in this one, and you need to hold the part, and you need to solder. Now this is where these helping hands come. You've got two crocodile clips on each end, and you've got a magnifying glass, if you're like me, yeah, wearing glasses. And then basically, if I wanted to solder, if I wanted to solder a bit of wire to this one there, I would put this one aside, put that in there, put that in the crocodile teeth like that. Here we are, just like that. And now I'll be able to solder quite easily. Yep, use the magnifying glass, I can see what I have, solder iron solder, and I can see what I'm doing, and here's my helping hand. Yep, so if you can, you need to, I would say one of the best buys you're going to make is getting one or two of these helping hands. Yep, so they're the helping hands. What else would I suggest that you to help you along your way? I showed you this earlier on. It's a model. Your scenery. Now you can buy scenery already made, or you can decide to make your scenery. I've decided to make the scenery because I thought, this is an added little skill. And this I bought from Kit, and I thought to myself when I made it, wow, that, it's come up really good. So what I will do now, I will go and buy, while my layout is being developed, because I'm not too sure exactly what I'm going to have on my layout. I know I'm going to have some buildings, and I'm going to have a bridge somewhere. I'm not too sure yet what I'm going to do. I will be buying kits and making them up. Now, I bought this kit to try. If you've never made these before, buy a simple kit and practice it, because if you've never made, I made few errors with this. I know the areas where I've gone wrong. So once again, if you decide you want to make your own, build your own from scratch, then, and you've never done this before, buy a simple kit and practice making it now, so that when you actually come to making your full-size model, yeah, you've weaned out all the bad practices. So, yep, buy a kit. Okay, right, what else? Okay, now, for those of you who are going down the route of aim gauge, as myself, yep, where's that? Where's my small loco? This is my loco. These are tiny, and if I get my track here, to actually put it on the track and get it right was a bit of a task. But I found this. I can't remember what the name of it, but it looks like a ramp. Basically, you put this on your track, you put your loco there, and you run it down. And when you run it down, it meets the line perfectly. So it goes like that on your track. And then you put that on there, and when you run it down, it meets the track perfectly, and my train is on my line. For me, this has to be one of the best buys as well. Makes putting your train on the track very, very, very easy. Yeah. These are small. I kind of got massive hands, eyesight, so this was a good buy for me. Okay, nearly. That's about it. There are loads more things I'm sure that we need to buy, but I'll buy that along the way, and each time I buy it I will let you know what I'm doing, and you can follow me. I hope that some of you have got some useful information out of this video. That's the intention anyway. Those of you who are you're not beginners and you've been doing this for many years, if you feel that I've said something incorrect or wrong information, please put a comment at the bottom, let me know, educate me, and that way I will pass that information on to hopefully the many viewers I hope to have. On that note, viewers, please subscribe if you feel that these sets of videos are going to be useful to you. If you subscribe, when I bring out a new one, you'll automatically be notified. So please subscribe, and yep, keep safe, and see you in the next video. Bye for now. Bye.